Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. The hour being after 7:30, I'd like to call the February 11th, 2021 school committee meeting to order. And due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and state of emergency, on March 12th, 2020, Governor Baker issued an executive order temporarily suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Pursuant to that order, public bodies are temporarily relieved from the open meeting law's requirement that meetings be held in public places, open and physically accessible to the public, so long as adequate measures are taken to ensure public access to the body's deliberations through adequate alternative means. Later on during this meeting, there's a section for citizens' comments, and that would be the appropriate time for any citizens who want to share their opinions. We would just ask that you pay attention to this meeting because your questions could possibly be answered during the body of the meeting. That being said, I'd like to welcome Mr. Bill Hahn, our Assistant Superintendent, to our meeting this evening. He's often here, but he's our anchor this evening, as Dr. Goff will not be joining us tonight. So the first thing I'd like to do, Mr. Hahn, is to ask you to introduce the recognition, the food service people, and the recognition that we want to give to them.
Terrific. Thank you, Ms. Galvin. Yes, this is a great way to start off my first meeting, recognizing some wonderful people who do great work for the Walpole Public Schools. And I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Frischer, who will say a few more words and recognize these great folks.
Thank you, Mr. Hahn. I'd like to thank the school committee for recognizing our school nutrition staff tonight. Really, as Mr. Hahn said, a wonderful group of people. I just want to provide some background of this year and kind of the end of last year, because it's really been an exceptional time during this pandemic, and this group in particular has done some really amazing work. 10 days before the school year began, the federal government asked food service programs nationwide to offer children breakfast and lunch on a daily basis as a way of preventing food insecurity for all school-age children. Food service programs were instructed not to charge for meals, and that the National School Lunch Program would provide a reimbursement to all programs for each breakfast and lunch provided. Some districts have chosen to provide a grab-and-go option as children leave the building at the end of the school day to avoid the challenges of students eating in classrooms or cafeterias. Walpole School Nutrition Director Maria Hall and Assistant Director Vanessa Mcas believed that they could provide meal service in school, and they worked with the principals in each building to make this a reality. As a result of this early planning, all 4 elementary schools provide both breakfast and lunch in the classrooms. Meals are prepared and delivered to the classrooms both in the morning and afternoon by our staff that are with us tonight. The staff are responsible for preparing the meals and making sure that the allergy concerns and specific meal requests are processed correctly. Once the students have finished their meals, the staff returns to the classroom and collects the storage bins. This process has become more challenging as additional grades return to our buildings, like our kindergartners started out, but our first and second graders have been added back as we move through the school year. The central kitchen and delivery staff have worked closely with the elementary staff to make sure the food arrives on time and the distribution can continue uninterrupted. At our middle school, staff continue to provide both breakfast and lunch in the cafeterias where they can ensure that social distancing is maintained. Meals are prepared in our central kitchen and offered in sealed packaging in a grab-and-go style that has been utilized throughout the pandemic at all schools. At the high school meals are prepared in the central kitchen also and delivered to several different locations throughout the building. Students go to each one of those locations to pick up their meals, and then they eat them in their classrooms. So it's spread out to obviously maintain a safe distance for all the students in the building. As you can see, breakfast and lunch has taken on a much different look this year for students, and this was only made possible by the school nutrition staff working in our central kitchen in every one of our schools. These individuals have adapted to many challenges they have faced this year, and their passion for the service that they provide is exceptional, even in these very difficult times. I'd like to just thank all the staff for the work that they've done this year. just really amazing work that nobody could have prepared for. And that was the end of last year and this year. So thank you for all being here, and I really appreciate personally the work that you've done this year.
That's really well said, Mike. We definitely wanted to take the time to invite the people here this evening. I'd like to give any of you who do this work a chance to speak to us tonight. Essentially, we're here to thank you, but your commitment is over the top. We just are really fortunate that people gave up an awful lot of their own time in the summer, when it was hot and sweaty, and you're continuing to do it through the ice and the snow. It's a labor of love, and we just want to thank you for what you are doing. So, Maria or anybody else, we would love to just hear a little bit about why you do what you do and how important it is to you, and hopefully how satisfying it is to you. So the floor is yours.
I think maybe one of the staff would like to say something. I'm shaking the head no. Maybe I said no. Sylvia or Jane Ellen? Tricia?
Hi.
Oh, so.
Good.
Okay. So as you can all see, it's been a long day. But yes, it is a labor of love. I think we all work very closely. We're working really hard to get it right every day, get it there on time, making sure everybody has what they need. The logistics of it is challenging sometimes, but we rise to the occasion. We have some really innovative staff that work closely together, and Maria has designed a program that led us to be able to deliver this. It's no easy feat what she has taken on. I don't know how many directors would want to put themselves out there, and not only has she taken on our staff of Walpole's children, but some days seems like the entire world we're feeding. And, you know, I was saying to Maria today that sometimes I don't think that she gives herself enough credit when you really think about how many families and how many lives that she's touching beyond Walpole, that they're just, it's such a need, and the appreciation. And when you see people lining up every week and just so grateful and so appreciative, and, you know, she's gone above and beyond what I think a school nutrition director does, and we're really lucky to have her. I know I've grown as a person and in my profession, and I think we all have. And, you know, I'm really lucky. I wake up in the morning blessed, and I enjoy it, you know. And thank you for the school committee for always supporting us. I think that's important. So we try to make you proud.
You sure do, Sylvia, and everybody. Yeah.
Everybody, yeah. Thank you all. That was very nice.
Jane, maybe you'd like to say something, because you're delivering right at the elementary level, and maybe you'd like to share. Not sure if you know how to unmute, but, and I see Gail's on, and just to share with you commitment, Gail actually is out with pneumonia, and she's on this call. So Gail, I hope you're feeling well.
We would love to hear from anybody else who would choose to.
I just wanted to really quickly say thank you from the principals and the administration. I know that at Johnson, our staff goes above and beyond every day. In addition to feeding every student who wants food, our staff is out between lunches, wiping down desks and tables and making sure that the place is safe for our students. It's a nonstop work, and they've done it all with smiles on their faces, and without hesitation or reservation. So we really appreciate everything. I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this year. I keep wondering what the remnants will be from all this and whether our students are going to want table service next year too. We'll see what happens. But thank you to everybody for everything that you have been able to do throughout the year, both in the schools and for the community. It's been tremendous.
Mark, go ahead.
I just want to say, as the son of a high school secretary and a couple of her friends were the women in the cafeteria, schools don't function without the everybody that's outside of the classroom. Sometimes people think of a school and they think of the classroom teacher and the administration. It's everybody else too. And I think especially this year, when you think of the food service people, it's more obvious than ever that it's everybody that has a role here. So thank you very much.
Sean.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you as well. And one of the underrated aspects of a food service person's life is the fact that you get to touch everybody's life, all of the children's lives that you service, and provide them a personal connection, especially this year, as you're often bringing the meals right to them. I know my children have greatly benefited from that, and from just the positive, glowing interactions they have. It's been so enriching, and I'm so grateful for that. And these are certainly tough days and tough times, but continuing to bring a smiling face and a great positive attitude along with the meal, is a real blessing to our community. So thank you.
Nancy, if I could just say that I have asked so much of the staff this year. Every time things change, I just say, can we do it? And every one of them have stepped up. Can you go over here and help at this school? Can you do that? Something's changed. When they added back each different, like it went from first grade, half of it, to the full first grade. Again, I applaud you all. You're all amazing. And I love working with every one of you every day.
That's great, Maria. And Sylvia touched on the fact that we're lucky to have you also. You have gone way out of your way to connect with the Council on Aging people and the food pantry people in Walpole. You're a great ambassador for the district, but I think you're mainly just a great friend to everybody who's here. So, you've put together a fantastic team, and sometimes that's the most underrated piece of culture. But your team is strong, and we just wanted to thank them, but you also. So, thank you. We don't expect you to stay for the rest of our meeting, although you're, of course, welcome. We know you have to get up early in the morning, and we will not take offense if you turn your cameras off now. But congratulations, and thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Good night, you all. Good night. Thank you.
Good night.
All right,
Okay. Our next item is a student report. It feels like a while since we've seen you, Brendan. Welcome back to the school committee virtual meeting. It's good to see you, and the floor is yours.
It's good to be here. Yeah, it has been a while. Good evening. My name is Brendan Mahoney, and I'm a senior at Walpole High School. The second week of the second semester at Walpole High is finishing up tomorrow, and so far it's going really well the second semester. All students began 4 new classes last Monday and are continuing on the hybrid learning schedule. Winter sports such as basketball and hockey for both boys and girls are starting to wrap up, with most teams finishing their regular seasons this week. Additionally, Fall 2 sports season is scheduled to begin on February 22nd, and these sports include cheerleading, indoor track, and football. The registration for all Fall 2 sports ends tomorrow, 2/12 at 4 p.m., so all students who plan on participating in these sports must register and turn in all of their paperwork prior to this deadline. All of these sports are beginning with strict guidelines, just as all other sports have this year, including perpetual mask wearing and daily wellness symptom checks for all athletes. Student Council organized a Spirit Week last week, in which there was a hat day and pajama day for both cohorts when they were in school. Additionally, Student Council and Best Buddies are collaborating on the Polar Plunge, which is a fundraiser run by Special Olympics of Massachusetts. in which people from different towns all across Massachusetts compete by raising money for Special Olympics as teams. And after the teams raise this money, they plunge into freezing cold water at the beach or body of water of their choice. And we've raised almost $1,000 already, and we hope to meet our $3,000 goal prior to the end of the month. Other clubs at Walpole High School have been organizing various events as well. Best Buddies created Valentine's Day cards for teachers and staff at the high school on Wednesday to thank these educators who are working so hard during this difficult time, and those are being distributed by us tomorrow. The mock trial team had their first match tonight at 5 p.m. and the results are currently pending. The photography club met earlier this week to discuss their February photo theme, which is inclines and declines. Additionally, on February 17th, the speech and debate team will be holding a fundraiser at Chipotle, and all of those who show the flyer for the speech and debate team and purchase food between 5 and 9 p.m. will have part of the proceeds go to the speech and debate team. This flyer can be found in the principal's e-notes. National Honor Society has been working hard on organizing a scavenger hunt for people all across Walpole during February break. The way the scavenger hunt will work is that people will gain access to locations at which they can take pictures for points by donating to a charity and showing their receipt of that donation on a Google form. After that, people will be able to follow the scavenger hunt list and take pictures at various locations all across Walpole. Each picture will be worth a different amount of points, and top point scorers will have a chance at winning gift cards from local businesses and restaurants. The sign-up information will be sent out through principal's e-notes and will be posted on Facebook and other social media platforms as well. And that will be coming tomorrow. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Wow, Brendan. That was a nice, thorough report, and it's very fun to see how the clubs have adapted to these times, and you did a nice job summarizing it. Are there any questions or comments for Brendan this evening? Well, it was great to have you here. You're welcome to stay, and don't be a stranger.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hahn, our next item under new business is a report from the science department.
Yes, we have 6 to 12 Science Department Chair Mimi O'Malley here with us tonight to give us an overview of the science curriculum with an emphasis on the updated Mcas requirements and the Physics 1 curriculum changes that occurred a couple years ago and how they've impacted the freshman class and other science curriculum. So I'm going to turn it over to Mimi, and as I do so, Mimi, I'll go ahead and share my screen of your slides.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm here to provide some updated information about the science curriculum from 6th to 12th grade, specifically about the freshman physics class. Just to let you know, I don't have any new data as far as Mcas goes. So there's no new data since I was here in 2019 because the Mcas was not administered last spring due to the pandemic. The next slide, please, Mr. Hahn. So these are currently the requirements that we're getting from the DESE for the Science Mcas. The 8th graders are slated to take their Science Mcas sometime between April and May this year. And the freshman class at the high school who would take the introductory physics exam are also slated to take a Mcas exam. However, there has not been a date that has been announced yet. We generally take this exam the first week in June. They usually give us about a week window, but they're going to have to expand that due to the so many districts being in the hybrid model. So I think they're still working that out, but we have not heard when the Mcas will be running in science. The upperclassmen, last year's freshmen, so our current sophomores, since they didn't take an Mcas last year, we weren't quite sure what was going to, how that was going to play out, but the DESE determined that they're going to award competency determination for those students. That means if they have passed a class in science that corresponds to any of the science Mcas exams, they'll be awarded credit for that, and that will meet their graduation requirement. Most of our juniors and seniors have already taken the science Mcas, But if we have any transfer students or other students that enter the building in any of those upper classes, they will be awarded competency determination as well. So it's really just the freshmen that we're going to hopefully see take the MCAS this spring. And just as a reminder, the most recent MCAS data that we do have from the spring of 2019, we had 98% of our freshman Physics 1 students pass that exam. Next slide, please. So a couple other things that I wanted to mention about the freshman physics. We have our cohort right now is our 5th group of students that have are taking our freshman physics, and we're definitely seeing some positive impact of making that change in the curriculum. Over the last few years, we've had to tweak a few things as far as curriculum and different courses, but we can definitely see some changes that are coming about because of that. One example that I can give you is this semester rather, right now,
Mimi, we lost your volume. I don't know if I'm the only one.
No, you're not. I can't hear her either.
Correct. Mimi, we lost your volume. Oh, she might have frozen altogether.
Oh, darn.
Oh,
We lost you.
Am I back?
you're back.
Okay, sorry
So,
about that.
you left off just as you were about to start the example where you started teaching this semester. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Those kids were taking we were studying organic compounds, carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, etc. Historically, it's been a very difficult topic for students to understand. This year, I definitely saw it was easier for the kids to comprehend it. I didn't have to go back over elements and compounds and molecular structures. They were familiar with that because of the chemistry that they had last year. Additionally, I was talking to one of the other biology teachers today, and she said the same thing about the graphing. One of the things I have up here is that we've done some collaboration with the math department as far as terms that we use and graphing guidelines. And we're definitely seeing that have a positive impact as the kids move through the curriculum. They do a lot of graphical analysis that freshman year on different types of speed graphs. Then that kind of helps them with some of the solubility curves and chemistry. And then they would get to biology, looking at the effect of pH and temperature on enzymes. Their graphing that they're doing is better, and their analysis of the graphs are better. And a lot of that is coming from what they're getting in that freshman class. One of the concerns when we first had moved the physics was the amount of math the kids were going to have to deal with. And we've really reached out to the math department, and the physics PLC team has talked with them about making sure the terms are the same. So the kids are hearing the same types of vocab and terms in for their freshman physics class as well as in their math classes. Additionally, the PLC team in physics, they make a lot of common assessments and labs. They meet weekly to make sure that the assessments incorporate MCAS questions, both multiple choice and open response on their assessments. We've been really happy with this move of the physics to freshman year. We're definitely seeing an impact of it, and it's been exciting to watch. The freshman physics class, the freshman physics MCAS this year will consist of standards from 2006 and 2016. It's kind of they're calling them like a hybrid set of standards, and that's what will be assessed this spring. Eventually they'll move completely to the 2016 standards, but right now they're still making that transition from one set of standards to the next set. The last slide, Mr. Hahn. And then just some overview of some of the effects of the pandemic has had on science education in Walpole. We've certainly had to work on a lot of collaboration with teachers as well as with students. It's been very exciting to see some of the collaboration that's come from the teachers. people learning new technologies, sharing them with one another, people developing virtual labs or finding a virtual lab that can be used in place of a wet lab. That's been really nice to be able to use those, not only for kids who are fully remote, but also in case of a student's absent, we could use a virtual lab. And then one of the things that's we've also tried that's worked out pretty well is having the kids who are in the building work on a lab virtually with the kids at home. So the way that that looks is I would have students at a lab table running a lab, and they would have their Chromebook open, and they would have remote kids who are at home looking on, and not just looking on, but the kids at home would be providing the procedure, or the kids at home would be recording the data. So it's really a nice combination or a collaboration between both the kids in the building and at home doing the same lab at the same time. So the kids at home aren't left out, and the kids in the building have to actually rely on the kids at home to help them figure out the lab. And we've tried this at a couple of different classes at the high school, and they've also tried it at the middle school too, and it seems to be going very well. Then challenges we've had, technology struggles, obviously, since I just froze a little while ago, there's a good example of it, but also kids having problems with Wi-Fi and other issues like that, multiple tabs open, but you know, we just kind of keep moving through that one. And then finally, the reduction of enough hands-on. There's an awful lot of materials that we can't use because there's not enough for every single student. We're used to working with the kids in groups. This is definitely a problem at the middle school where the teachers aren't in their classrooms teaching science, but we keep trying to rely on other alternatives, and we're moving through the curriculum to make sure that the kids get the best experience that they can. That's all I have. Are there any questions I can answer for anybody?
Thank you, Mimi. Are there questions from any of the school committee members? Yes, Sean.
Thank you, Nancy. I just wanted to just ask a question about the math and the physics. I didn't quite make that connection myself, that the math required in physics and bringing that down to the freshmen might cause some struggles. And you mentioned that that was going well, and I just wondered if you could just expand on that a little bit.
That the math that's in the freshman physics is designed for freshman students. It's designed for kids who just know algebra. So it's not the same calculus-based physics that a lot of us took when we were in high school. We still offer that course to the upperclassmen, but this course from the DESE is specifically designed for freshmen so that the math they're getting corresponds to what they can do in class. It's a much more conceptual-based physics than the traditional physics that we would teach to the upperclassmen.
Thank you.
Yep.
I did want to commend you guys. I have an 8th grade student, and she's really benefiting from the in-person and remote collaboration on the lab reports. Having been a part of both, that's a brilliant idea.
Great.
So thank you.
Oh, good. Glad to hear that.
Mimi, can you just explain the sequence? If kids start with physics, then it sounds like most students take chemistry their sophomore year. Is it an expectation that they would take biology as juniors, and do most kids do that?
Yep, so it's required that they all have to take physics as a freshman, chemistry as a sophomore, and biology as a junior. And then they're free to take electives concurrently with the biology, and then obviously senior year as well. So, because we have plenty of students who will go through and graduate with 6 sciences, and it still gives them the opportunity to do that. So they can still take plenty of sciences if they want to, but everybody takes physics, chemistry, biology.
And when it comes to senior year, could you, like, just a ballpark number, how many students do opt to take science in their senior year, and how many of them are taking AP type sciences?
I would say the majority of students take an additional science.
Okay,
The biggest electives that we have are the marine science in the anatomy and physiology, and we have about 10 or 12 sections of those
wow,
courses. So there's plenty of kids taking those additional sciences. The AP classes, we probably have about 50 students between the physics, the biology, and the AP environmental science.
so how does it work if somebody takes AP physics? Would they be ready to do that right after their junior year of biology?
Yes. So the physics that they got as a freshman,
Yep,
it works just fine for them to take the AP Physics 1 class. And they could do that as a junior or as a senior.
that's great. And did you say you also you also offer anatomy and physiology?
Yes, we offer that at the CP2, the CP1, and the honors level.
That's great. Great.
Mhm.
Well, it's good. It sounds like the plans that you made a few years ago are really paying off the way you had hoped to.
Yeah, we're really happy with how it's going.
That's great. Any other questions or comments for Mimi? Well, please thank your department and thank you for being here tonight. It does look like you've made the best of a difficult situation, so thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night. Okay, that'll get us to our next item. Mr. Hahn, would you like to do an introduction to Ron Dowd and Fall 2 sports?
All right, we'll skip the January survey. Want to do?
Oh, my bad. No. You first.
All right. Yeah, I was gonna say I can't introduce myself, but I am going to speak and present on our January parent survey results. So if you give me 1 second, I need to share my screen again. All right. So many of you remember in October we presented our first parent survey results, and we committed then and commit now to ensuring that we don't just survey our parents and caregivers once, but we continue to get feedback to kind of measure our growth and success in continued areas of need. So just to start, as I did last time with the October survey, I want to just share a little bit about where our numbers are. These numbers reflect our X2 Aspen data, which tends to be updated daily and very accurate. We have approximately 954 students who are 4-day in person. That includes K1 and 2, and that also includes what we would identify as high need students in grades 3 to 12. We currently have 2,263 students in our hybrid, oftentimes known as our hybrid/remote program, and then our remote learning management system, oftentimes referred to as Rlms system, currently has 374 students. That number has come down, I don't want to say quite a bit, but a little bit. We've seen more students transfer into in-person or hybrid learning, especially at the halfway mark of the year. And I just, at this point, want to make sure I take an opportunity to ensure all the community members that we are working every day to increase our in-person learning, and are asking our principals and our administration to always evaluate more opportunities to bring students in the building. You may remember from our October survey that we broke it up into 4 different categories: technology, teaching and learning, social emotional learning / student well-being, and then remote learning management system. Our questions were consistent with the October survey, except for 2 new questions, and I've listed these questions there. And we felt after October, and based on a lot of community feedback and emails we've received, we wanted to get a better sense of how our caregivers felt about sending students to school if we kept it at 6 feet social distancing between students, or if we narrowed that number to 3 feet. So we did make one addition to this survey. Our target audience obviously has not changed. It's pre-K to 12. Our survey responses are below in this slide as well. One of the things that I do want to point out is the second bullet point under survey response statistics, and that is of the 1,455 responses, 1,370 of them were repeat responses, which is really important because it makes the comparable data very valid and something that was important to us. We were down overall with responses, but we still believe that 1,455 responses makes it a very reliable survey. And this is just a slide to show some more as we dive into the in-person population survey results. So we are talking about, when I share this data, we're talking about students who are in the hybrid learning model, cohort A or B, or students who are in the 4-day in-person learning model. So what you're going to see, this is a lot of data and a lot of information, so I want to just give an overview of what you're looking at. And this is the first category that I discussed in the beginning, and that is safety. Again, you're going to see some of the same questions that we asked in our October survey. And so I want to draw your eye immediately to the mean of the 1 to 5 Likert scale. And so you'll see on the left-hand side is our most recent results, and that's January. And on the right-hand side is, and our right-hand side is our October fall results. And then to the right, we did the percentage change so that people could see that. Now, one thing that I want to point out with the safety is, because you are going to see some reductions in percentage changes, is please keep in mind these mean averages are very high. So, when you look just quickly, for example, at the first question, and I'm not going to go through every question, but the school safety procedures and protocols are clear and well communicated. Currently, that mean was 4.6, and in October is 4.63. Respectfully, we wouldn't lose a lot of sleep over that change, because that number in January and October is still very high, and it is evident that we are emphasizing and prioritizing safety. Certainly, if there was a major change in the numbers, it would be something we would stop and evaluate and take a look at. And this is just a good reminder to all of our students, teachers, and administrators that we need to keep stressing safety throughout this entire process. I do think, though, these numbers are pretty consistent with our fall numbers. The next is technology. For the most part, you're going to see an increase in the mean. Again, similar to the decrease in the slide before, the increase in technology is minor, but it does show a continued commitment, and I also think it demonstrates that our technology has improved. And I think that's not just simply our infrastructure, but we've got in, since the October survey, many brand new Chromebooks that we've distributed immediately to students. The newer Chromebooks help with better connectivity. I think that our teachers are better informed and have strategies, and our students have strategies how to maximize technology. And so I think part of the increase you're seeing here is just everyone getting used to this system and making changes for the better. And our technology department has done a tremendous job supporting our students, and caregivers, and teachers. So this was probably our most encouraging data that I want to start with. And that is the teaching and learning. We saw an increase in every single one of our questions for teaching and learning. We're excited about that, even if the increases were small, because I think it reflects the growth of our teachers and their dedication and commitment to professional development and collaboration to improve teaching and learning. If you just take, for example, the first question, my child's remote learning time is well structured. This is a product of teachers' comfort level, the professional development, and I really strongly believe the increase in synchronous learning. In the last question, my child was able to engage in online learning independently, I think is a reflection that our students are becoming more comfortable and demonstrating incredible resilience as they respond to this tough learning environment. So we were really happy with the overall increase in the mean of this question. And we were pleased with the responses that we received. We do feel like it's a reflection of bringing more kids in person, and absolutely the increase in synchronous learning that's improved to improve the experience for our at-home learners. The SEL Student Well-Being category is just, it really gave us very, very important pause. This is something that we have committed to, not just at a district level this year, but as you know from the presentation in last school committee meeting, as in our last school committee meeting, when Mrs. Scales presented, this is something that we're trying to do culturally, but we know that our students are struggling at this time, and we know that this continues to be an area of need, and we know that the longer the pandemic continues, that we're continuing to see a dip in students feeling isolated, disconnected from adults, disconnected from their peers. I was even listening to the presentations tonight, and when we were paying our gratitude to our food services group, and I was thinking about how even when our students are in school, they sit alone at desks to have lunch so that they're separated, right? I mean, some of those just general connections when they're doing science labs, they're not, in those small groups. Now, I want to be clear that I'm not suggesting, well, then that, that's the reason why as a district, we have to really consider these numbers and consider how we can connect our students better with each other and with our staff. But I know that this is something that not just Walpole is facing, that dip and that lack of connection to each other and to our staff. I wanted to pull out some quotes from parents, because I think these quotes represent very well some of our, it's hard to just measure in data social emotional impact. So I wanted to share, I won't read all 4 of these quotes, but I do want to leave this slide up for a minute to give everyone here an opportunity to read. You can see that even parents who are so grateful for the teachers recognize the lack of social opportunities for their children and the impact this is having on them. And I will speak to, at the end of the presentation, I will speak, just so everyone knows, to what we want to do and how this is an area of improvement for us. The next slide will just review our full Rlms population and their survey results. Those are students who are full remote. So this does not reflect cohort A or B. This reflects students who are 5 days fully remote. And again, we were very satisfied with the increase in the mean in almost every category. There was a small reduction in that seems like less value for the homeroom check-ins for our 6 to 12 learners. But we were really pleased with the growth, not just for our K-5 program for learning, but also our 6 to 12. And I think that's a reflection of the additional supports we've given our students and the growth of not only our teachers, but our students and their comfort level with this remote environment. So I think, especially if you look at the K-5, you're seeing some incredibly strong numbers about the response that we're getting from those students and their caregivers. And this is an important slide. I wanted to pull out the 2 questions that I noted earlier that were added to the survey. And so you'll see the 2 questions on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the most comfortable, 1 being the least comfortable. Obviously, I'm comfortable sending my child to school with the safety protocols, including masks, at 6 feet. And then the next question notes at 3 feet. And the reason why I believe this slide is really important, not only for the leadership team, but also for school committee, and we wanted to pull it out to show, is that oftentimes it gets portrayed that it is just strictly teachers or educators who are uncomfortable with having kids in less than 6 feet. And what you see here for the K-5 is a 0.8 drop in the mean, and for 6 to 12, a whole entire point drop in the mean of parents and caregivers' comfort level with bringing kids in at less than 6 feet. That's not to say that we wouldn't absolutely still consider that, but I do just wanted to show that this is, I think, a community concern, not just one that's isolated with our educators. We are so grateful to our union and their continued commitment to talk to us about this, and we are still talking about this and still discussing the potential of bringing our students in, especially as vaccinations become more readily available to our teachers. But we thought this was interesting to point out that it is a community concern, as you can see, just strictly by these numbers alone. And then these quotes also reflect it, and I would bring you to what we're always working on as a school is misinformation. And so I point out, just as a point of reference, the first quote: "It's important to get kids back. 3 feet is completely safe, and that's what's recommended by the CDC." To the last quote, I believe it's worth it. it says, I believe that we are doing a wonderful job in seeing low to no spread in schools via student to 6 feet apart. I do not believe it is worth it to risk to shift to less than that, and that we should follow the CD recommendations of 6 feet. So I only point that out because you can see how we're always battling information. Just in those 2 quotes alone, I have 2 parents who feel very differently about sending children back, both quoting the CDC. So you can imagine just the amount of information that's out there and what we're trying to stay informed on ourselves for our own personal and professional lives, and what we want our community to understand as well. Hopefully you've had enough time to read. We tried to select ones from that share both sides to make sure we're representing all parents. Okay, so if you might remember, in October, we highlighted areas in need of improvement. That was screen time, synchronous instruction, student social emotional learning, and then we reiterated need of consideration and support identified in the October survey, which reflect those 3 areas of improvement. So, what have we done? Well, we know that we increased 4-day in-person learning for our first and second grade students. We started the year with our K in 4 days. We hired positions at the middle school and high school to work with struggling students on remote days. So students that were absent, were not present, just really struggled on those days. We hired more staff to provide support to those learners. We've increased synchronous instruction at all 3 levels. I feel confident that I think you could ask any student and parent if they've seen an increase in synchronous instruction, and regardless if their child was elementary, middle school, or high school, they would reflect that they've seen that. We continue to work with families to identify the best learning program for their children. In other words, as I said in the beginning, we are committed to bringing students in person, and we are always having conversations with our parents and caregivers of what's working for their children and what's maybe not working. We're providing guidance programming for our remote learning management students. That's an increase since our last meeting. That's one of the areas we're committed to and trying to improve on. We provided training on remote learning management program for all middle school and high school staff to increase support for students in remote learning, including our ESPs, our ELL support. And then as kind of a very broad umbrella here, we continue to provide professional development for staff to utilize appropriate technology and remote resources, and we've tried to share that with you throughout the year. So in closing, in the last slide here, I just want to take a minute to recognize that while we remain positive and we do believe there's a marked improvement in areas of teaching and learning, the improvement in teaching and learning reflects the dedication and hard work by all staff to meet the needs of students. But below are areas which we need to continue to improve upon based on the January survey results. And that's continued emphasis on social emotional learning and increased opportunities for students to connect with peers and teachers during in-school and remote sessions. And I think most of us understand that those 2 bullet points are absolutely connected. So we obviously take social emotional learning and the well-being of our students very seriously. So the current conditions create challenges for student connections, but we'll address these issues by evaluating in school and starting to have more conversations about out-of-school opportunities as we grow maybe some after-school clubs that were initially started the year unable to run. We're finding we're having more flexibility and more creative ways to run those clubs. Continue to evaluate our guidance curriculum that will increase opportunities for student connection. That's part of our hybrid and remote models, and continue to seek opportunities to increase effective synchronous instruction for all students. We believe even if students are home, the more synchronous instruction we have, the more connected they'll be with one another. And I think Mrs. O'Malley's example for Science Lab is a great example. The last paragraph just reflects our gratitude to everyone who has worked so hard during this very tough time, and a special thank you, as always, to Kathy Mortali, who's been so helpful in compiling this data and ensuring that we're communicating in a way that's helpful. So with that said, I do want to make sure I take pause and provide any opportunity to take questions or comments. I think I can see
Okay,
Mark.
Mr. Green.
Thank you. I just want to say, I think your presentation kind of reinforces the importance of sort of staying the course. You know, it seems as if you got a certain portion of the population that would like more kids in school, a certain portion of the population that is fearful of reducing the distance from 6 feet to 3 feet, which puts you in the middle. I've spoken to 2 parents, and only 2, My kids are older, so I don't see a lot of people, but the two parents that I spoke to have kind of understood the concept of just sort of staying the course. That both of them would prefer that their kids were in more, but kind of understand that you have to balance an awful lot of things going on here. That's just my little sample. I mean, you've got a larger sample size than me. I've got two, right? But I think staying the course is the best course of action, and I'm 100% behind you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I was happy to see the survey results kind of reflect what we're hearing. These are tough questions. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Different school districts handle things different because different school districts have different size buildings. There's a lot of information out there that doesn't apply. You hear things about 6 feet versus 3 feet and the CDC rules. And as I explain to people, that's really the limiting factor is your space in our schools. And while the school out west may have some more space and may be able to bring everyone back, we currently don't have that in Walpole, and that's just a limiting factor. So, we continue to look at ways to do better, and things are evolving. And, while I would like to say, we should have a plan in place to get everyone back in school, because I do appreciate being a working parent, everyone's frustration with, homeschooling and remote learning. I think that we just need to understand that we're trying to work with, all the different components here and really make decisions based upon what's best for our district and given the temperature of where parents are at and constraints. So I just want to encourage parents to be patient and realize that, like you, we understand your challenges, because we're struggling with some of these issues too, and teaching our children at home is, not ideal. So I think
I could respond specifically to one of Jen's points. I think was really important, and that's the nature that we all compare to each other and to other districts. And I was on a call with about 60 superintendents today in a tri-county roundtable, and each of them said what Jen just said. There are some people with class sizes average as 18. You have some people with good ventilation, bad ventilation, different populations. And so it's just very difficult to compare one district to another without considering all of the things that impact the district's decisions. And so I guess what I can stress again is our continued commitment and how important it is we know to bring kids in. And that's what we evaluate daily. So thank you.
Carrie?
I agree with the points that Mark and Jen made, and I also, I think what that survey tells us is that everything from on the end of what our teachers and our staff are doing is improving, right? All those numbers went up in terms of how the classes are running each day, the technology being much more smooth. The dip is in, I think, everyone's sort of frame of mind right now, and that's not surprising in the dead of winter when opportunities to be social outside of school are at a minimum, and there aren't a lot of activities that kids can participate in right now. It's this long stretch of, just waiting for the weather to turn up and have something to look forward to and be able to socialize again. And I think everyone is feeling that across the board, and it's not surprising that it's reflected in the survey. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that the district is working to try to support kids social emotionally as much as they can. And I really think the quote that you had from one of the parents that was in favor of remaining at 6 feet because of their quarantine experience was really important to point out, because I think sometimes parents think about moving to 3 feet and getting everyone back in, not realizing that there actually could be far more disruption to their child's experience at 3 feet because who gets designated a close contact and who has to quarantine, that number just, increases exponentially when you don't have the distancing. And I'm grateful that parent, raised that point that there aren't 3 feet doesn't come without a lot of trade-offs. And I think Mark's view of staying the course is what makes sense right now.
Bill?
Through you, Madam Chair, just a couple of procedural questions. I concur with all my colleagues, and I think it's never wrong to continue to reinforce how different each school district is. I was on the phone with a colleague from Norwood School Committee, and just like an hour ago, talking about just how they'd like to do what we're doing with K1 and 2, but their schools just aren't built that way. They're smaller, and just the way they're physically engineered, there isn't a big space that could stick them in a library or convert a gym into a second grade. I guess I have a procedural question about going forward. I know this is great data, and I love that we have been tracking who has responded the first and the second. What would the timeline be for a third? Would we want to do this again in April or May? Or I just, that was one question. And two, I was really struck by the two parent comments about the CDC, and I think it's important to also highlight, I know our superintendent did a tremendous job in the last month or so, really tracking down with her large network of colleagues, as you have done, Bill, when someone says, well, Westwood's doing this, and calling Westwood right up and finding out exactly what is happening. And I think some of us on the school committee have the benefit of our professional association, which has also collected these large bits of data. But I think my secondary question, or just something to outline would be, the rubrics and the guidelines with which we are operating within themselves are changing. So the CDC's recommendations have changed as we go through this. So as I agree with Mark that we should stay the course, but as we do that and try to do the greatest good for the greatest number, the very goalposts themselves also move along this. So I think it's never wrong. It's never a bad idea to belabor all of the different multifaceted constraints around it. It's not an easy task, and I commend you for what you've done given the circumstances.
And I do think we were going to do one more survey in mid to late April. We're trying to make it so it's relevant. You can respond to it and make changes as a result of it. So the April seemed like a sweet spot, and that's that 2.5 to 3 month window to actually let some change occur.
I have 3 comments, basically comments, Bill. The first one is just, it looks to me like you've done a lot for students that did not start out successfully, by bringing the young students back in the 4 days and reaching out to families where students are struggling. I guess I would just point out that if a parent or caregiver, it feels that their student still remains struggling, please reach out to the principal of your particular child's school, because we don't want to see that happen. And there's still a half of the school year left, or most close to that. So reach out if that's a concern at this point. My second point is about the 3 feet versus the 6 feet. I'm glad that so many people did answer the survey, and just looking at it, I sort of looked at it and said, anybody who, it was on a 1 to 5 scale, so anybody who picked a 3 is not really sure how they feel. Maybe sometimes they want their student back, but they're not completely comfortable with it. And when I counted it up, it was 42% of the people are either uncertain or not comfortable with the 3 feet of distance. And that the families with kids in grades 6 through 12 were less comfortable than the families with elementary students. So again, I think it's just an important thing to think about as we consider what we might be able to do in the elementary schools to help the kids socialize a little bit. I don't know if that's something worth discussing, but I know that you have the whole social emotional learning there, and I'm not suggesting anything other than staying the course, but I thought it was interesting that there is more comfort zone for parents of young kids, and I think that in some ways the science supports that. And then the last point is, I think Carrie mentioned it, that this time of year is just hard. And I think that every teacher and every student and every parent realizes this has been going on for a really long time, and it's not going to be over tomorrow. And I think that we have to really commend the students for the effort that they've put in so far, and just give them a little bit of encouragement when they come back from February break to help them get over that hurdle. I am working in a middle school right now, and I just see kids discouraged. It's hard because it's not as fun as they want it to be. It's not as engaging as they want it to be. And as hard as that is, I think that we as the adults have to sort of keep that in mind so that they don't just check the box for the rest of the school year, because we're doing the best we can. I think they know that, but it's hard right now.
Nancy, and I think that I tried to reflect that in one of the comments, that part of the growth in those numbers is our children's resilience and their growth during this time. And they have been truly amazing. And I'm glad you mentioned, I think it's not only appropriate to keep encouraging them, but to praise their work and their effort. I talked to one of our wonderful second grade teachers just last week who said, our kids are learning, and they're learning math and ELA, but they're also learning some incredible life skills throughout this process. And that I think we need to reflect that to them. I want to make sure adults who are also frustrated, maybe some of those frustrations we share with just other adults, but to our children, we talk about the growth that they've had in the work while still recognizing the difficulty of this time. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's an important point.
Jen.
I just wanted to say that I think Carrie spoke to this too, but as much as it stinks that this is the new normal now, what Walpole is doing is allowing for consistency. And I can speak from talking to, people in different states whose school districts are taking different approaches. It's really hard when schools are closed down. We opened, kids go to school for 1 week, then the kids are switched into a different mode of learning, fully remote, then they go back in person. That's really tough for kids to adapt to. And there's something to be said for, children being able to, have some sort of consistency, even if it is 2 days. They can count on those 2 days. There's snowstorms and we move the days around just to get the kids in for 2 days. So that's kind of what I've been emphasizing to my children is, it may not be exactly the way it used to be, but you can at least count on, provided that you're not, around somebody who has COVID or something else unfortunate, at least you can count on every effort being made to be in school 2 days. And that's important because I can tell you it is very, very disruptive when schools are shut down, and that's hard for kids to adapt to. So I think that as much as it's not ideal, we're trying to make the best of a tough situation and make tough decisions. But I do really think the consistency of keeping the schools open is something that I think we've really done a great job with, and to me, that's important.
That's a really good point, Jen. I think there were people who probably physically lost money betting on how long they thought schools would be open. And I'm not sure anybody would have said we could have started on September 14th and still be open on February 11th. So that's a really good point. Anything else, or shall we move on? Okay. Thank you, Bill. And that was really an important conversation. Now we get to Ron Dowd. Thank you for being patient, Ron. And why don't you do the introduction, Bill?
Well, so as you mentioned, Athletic Director Ron Dowd is here to talk to us about Fall 2 sports. Mr. Dowd has presented a presentation and will answer any questions you have at the conclusion of his presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Dowd. And Ron, I will present your presentation now, and you just have to let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
Good thing. Thanks, Bill. First, I'd like to say that we just completed tonight a successful winter season. We had no transmission between Walpole athletes at all during the season. And a big thank you and shout out to our coaches, our athletic trainer, Amanda, our school nurses who helped us greatly, Rachel Jackson and Heather White, our parents for staying patient and being there to help out, but mostly to the players. They're the ones doing it. And, I want to, thank them, very much. They did a great job with it. They took it serious, and it showed. We were able to get through our season, for the most part, uninterrupted. So I want to thank all those people very much. Having said that, we are on to our Fall 2 season. Next slide, Bill, please. These are the sports that we're offering: boys and girls indoor track, which is being moved to outside; girls volleyball, which we moved from our original fall season; cheerleading, which will look different. It's only sideline cheer only; and football. This is just a little guide, approval timeline that we've gone through. As you can see, from January 18th to January 29th, everything went pretty quickly. From the sports committees approving, making modifications to sports medicine, approving it. They had to go to a COVID task force where they approved both of them. And then the MIA Board of Directors approved all modifications and made a few slight adjustments. Since then, this week I met with all Fall 2 coaches and, went over expectations and how practice will look going forward. Safety being our number one concern. Fall 2 season, we can expect to start practices on February 22nd. This can and, possibly will be adjusted depending on temperatures and snow, especially over the next week. Games will be beginning approximately 2 weeks later and running through April 25th. Right now, the BSC is proposing to end on April 10th due to we recognize that the spring athletes last season did not get any season, and we want to do everything we can to ensure that they get the most that they can get, because they deserve it. They lost an entire season. We are going to continue with competing within the league. It's going to stay the same as the fall and the winter. We will not go out of league, and we will stay with the same opponent throughout the week. So if we're running against Natick in track, we will play Natick in football and in volleyball as well. And like the 2 prior seasons, there will be no MIAA tournament whatsoever. Safety considerations, there's many. Team benches will be distanced, assigned seating for each player when we can. Designated mass break areas that will be away from the teams. There'll be no locker room access. Assigned seating on buses, and we'll follow the bus protocols for mask, windows, and social distancing. I'll be working with Mike and Kim on this because I understand today that they changed a little bit. So, we'll be working together over the next few weeks to, come up with a plan on that. And obviously no sharing of water bottle, masks, towels, helmets, or uniforms. We changed their helmet for football this year where it won't say Walpole on the side. We're putting the numbers on the side. And that way there, it's easier for the kids to see, number 44, these are mine, this is mine. Also for the coaches to recognize if the quarterback is wearing number 78 on his helmet, chances are that's not his helmet. So it's just a secondary way for us to stay on top of the kids and ensure that they're wearing the proper equipment. We'll be working with the town officials on spectator policies. I'm sure that will be changing has changed and will continue to change as we move forward for inside school buildings and the limitations outdoors. And the EA and MIA Bay State Conference modifications, the COVID-19 course for coaches, they must complete that before they step on the field. Roster sizes will be limited, increased spacing, disinfected shared equipment and bench areas, and allowing a 15-minute buffer time between practices, especially inside. Temperature and field safety, we'll be using the parking lots right now. Turkle Field is probably under 12 inches, if not more, of snow. Sawhorses, cars will be used for barricades, so there'll be no one entering the parking lots. If ice or snow is on the parking lot, practice areas will make adjustments, and we'll be working with the DPW on this. We've come up with a cold weather policy. If it's between 26 and 32 degrees, all skin must be covered, and we're limiting practice from 2 hours down to 1 hour and 30 minutes from start to finish. Anything below 25 degrees, we will be calling practice off for the day. Again, safety. Coaches' expectations is to get the players to fill out the QR codes. We will be continuing with that. We think we've had success. That's one of the reasons why we've had it. Coaches, again, must do the course. Masks must be worn and socially distanced when speaking with the team. We've encouraged coaches, just when you think you're far enough away, take another step back. Coaches are expected to set the example as it relates to mask wearing. They'll be giving me charts for practice groups for tracking purposes. This has helped the nurses, the Board of Health tremendously. We're able to locate and isolate the incident and get those kids who need to be quarantined in a very timely manner. The coaches are expected to check in with Amanda and myself. We will have extra masks and hand sanitizer, and the coaches are expected to make sure that, again, the masks are being worn and hand sanitizer is being used at all times. No changing of times or locations of practice without approval. And that's simply put, the big reason for that is if we have someone who possibly had a positive case and we need to get somebody off the field, we need to know where they are to go out there and get them off the field in a timely manner, again, for safety reasons. Football modifications, football and outdoor track will be challenging. There's no doubt about it. Snow is out there, and more snow is in the forecast. The long range temperatures look like they're going to be in the 30s for the next few weeks, with lows below freezing. So it's going to be challenging, but hopefully we can make it work. If the field is available, we'll be using 3 groups of 25. One group is always off in the tennis courts doing walkthrough stuff. They then can alternate groups, locations. Coaches can use this as a conditioning, running from one location to the next. Practice times at that point would be 2:45 to 4:30, 4:45 to 6:45 with the older players. Right now, depending on the number of players that we get, we'll either have 2 or 3 teams, a freshman, sophomore team, and a varsity team. If we have the numbers, we'll offer a freshman, a JV, and varsity. But right now, we just don't know yet how the numbers will shake out. If there's no field available, we'll use the parking lot behind the tennis courts in Plimpton. The first few weeks of practices, we'll be using Saturdays and Sundays. The hope for there is a little bit warmer temperatures and to maximize the parking lot space. There'll be no, generally speaking, there's no cars out there during those times. Teachers aren't in the building, so the parking lot is emptier. Again, we'll be, barricading the parking lot and, making it safe. Prior to school, the equipment bags will be left. We have a room outside Amanda's office. We'll encourage the kids to leave them in their cars. If they can't, if they're underclassmen, they'll put them in that room beside Amanda's office. Again, there'll be no locker rooms. 2 coaches for practices afterwards to wipe down balls and equipment daily. I've talked to the football coach. It doesn't look like, I've encouraged them to limit using the equipment as much as possible. Obviously, footballs you need to use. But if we can not do pads and stuff to limit that would be great. So he's coming up with some ways to construct practice and to limit pad use. All football-related practices are to be conducted outside. We unfortunately do not have a field house, so sticking 25 to 30 kids with coaches inside the gym, we just don't feel it's conducive at this time. So we'll be using it outside and using the cold weather guidance. The weight room is still not available. Game day rosters are limited to 45 players and 6 coaches. If you're injured, you cannot be on the sideline. And, from there, we'll just follow the MIA guidelines to ensure safety. Indoor track modifications, again, we'll be using the back of the school. We'll be mostly outside. The throwers will go to Johnson Middle School 2 days a week for 90 minutes. And all the equipment, again, will be sanitized after. Runners will stay within their group. The size of the groups will depend on the number of events. And we're going to try to limit the numbers as quick, as small as we can. We've limited practices to Monday and Tuesday will be cohort A. Everybody will practice on Wednesday. The feeling again is the school is remote, so the parking lot will be more empty. And then cohort B on Thursday and Friday. The first few weeks, Saturday and Sunday practices, they'll be running in the morning, and football will be coming in after them. And all practice will run 2 hours in duration. As a league, we're talking about running virtual race days. We will follow the MIA event guidelines, for race day events. And as you can see, again, the weight room is not available for those kids, unfortunately, right now. And, we'll continue to follow the guidelines. Volleyball, practice will be split into 3 teams. We'll be utilizing the high school and Elm Street, assigned bag drop locations at both locations. And that will be given to us, again, for contact tracing purposes. JV and varsity practice will last 2 hours at Elm Street. Freshmen will last 1 hour and 45 minutes at the high school. Again, smaller numbers inside the gym at all times. Coaches will need to wipe down the balls daily and the equipment daily. Entering the gym on Elm Street will be using the side doors, so they won't be going, through the school. Team benches for game days will be located on opposite sides. No changes of benches between sets. Usually they alternate sides. They will not. They will stay on their own side. Teams and coaches should be maintain social distancing while on benches. And this year for freshman games, instead of going back to back and going side to side with freshmen and JV, we'll be doing JV and varsity on one day, and freshmen will move to another day. Again, limiting the number of people inside gymnasiums and we'll be allowing more times for cleaning of the facility between the games as well. And we're hopeful to stream these games as well. Chair is chair only, and it will only be home games. Practices, when we can, will be done outside. No stunts, no pyramids. They've got to stay within their cohorts. For athletes, no more than 10. No mixing of groups at any time during the year. So if you're in this cohort, you just got to stay in that. And the same is true for indoor track as well. And again, if they're using the mats, the coaches, they'll have to wipe down the mats every single day. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as it relates to this.
Okay, well, now I can see everybody. Go ahead, Kristen.
I just wanted to say thank you. I know it's not easy, and you have some of the same challenges that everybody else does, just a little differently. I have a son who plays soccer, so soccer was a little easier to manage some of the changes in the fall, but we were grateful that we got a season in, and I think it goes to our previous conversation. It's really important for some of these kids to keep playing sports for their social, emotional. It's sometimes the only time they really see people. Sometimes their friends are on their team, not in their cohort, in their classes. So I was grateful that soccer was able to happen. I remember the coach said to my son, to the team, don't be the reason that you're not playing. So I think all the kids took that very seriously. You got the fall season in, you got the winter season in. So just thank you, because I know it's not easy, and I know it means a lot to these kids. So I appreciate your hard work to make these seasons happen.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Bill.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Coach, for a pretty solid report. Just a couple of kind of tangential things. As you talked about the MIA standards, when we talk about the amount of practicing, that's kind of standardized across the entire league. So we're being there's no competitive loss or edge, or I say that on the flip side, there's no incentive to maybe do another practice over here somewhere. I know we're really controlling that. And, it seems like football obviously is going to be the most logistically difficult, although I have full faith in confidence that Coach Sullivan and Coach Costello and their assistants, are up to the challenge. And I know they and all the other athletes who are doing this sort of winter too are, as Kristen said, so desirous to get out there because it's so important to so many kids. Just two thoughts. One, have we looked at maybe through you, Madam Chair, to Mike Frisha, is there a possibility when we look at volleyball or something like that to electrostatic spray when they get after they're done, before they get there, between games? Is that something that could be done? I don't know how regularized we do that sort of disinfecting, but is that something that could streamline the process, strengthen the process, depending on the situation, depending on where it is? Understanding that the overarching custodial duties our staff has.
I think to answer that, it depends on the event. It depends on the timing between the events. So with volleyball games, if there's 20 minutes to half an hour, you would have time to go through and do an initial spraying. But the sprayers you have to be careful with because you have people in the space. So it's kind of hard. We've been with the youth groups doing it after the day is done.
Okay.
And after the kids have moved on to make sure that, okay, the user groups, once they're done, we've disinfected the building for the occupants to come back the next day for school. So that was where we drew the line. That's probably how we would have to do it, Bill, just because of staffing and timing.
Perfect. That makes sense. And you talked about possible Saturday, Sunday practices. Are those outdoor? Are there any in the building? And would that require additional custodians and things of that nature?
No, they'd all be outside. We're committed to being outside. It's obviously safer.
Yeah.
So we'd like to do it outside. And we will be doing it outside. Talking to Steve, talking to Bridget. The kids got to get used to it. They're going to be playing, and it's a safer thing. And to piggyback on what Mike said, I've been in the school when they sprayed.
Yeah.
And kind of walk through it.
Yeah, I know.
It doesn't smell at all.
I know it. And finally, through you, Madam Chair, just kind of a point of information. I know so many of us are disappointed, but completely understand and support the need to limit spectators. But I did notice just in preparation for this meeting, when you go onto the Walpole Community Media YouTube page, there's a ton of games that were just added within the last day or two, JV games at the youth and at the high school level. So I think I know, Coach, we have Kristen here, who's our local media person, but I know you tweet a lot and things like that. I would just encourage for us to kind of disseminate those tapes and those links, just so the community loves to support our athletics, and in this pandemic, in whatever manner we can, if we can kind of push out the football game, even though we can't sit in the stands, or the track meet, I think there would be a deep desire to kind of promulgate that in the community, because we want to support our student athletes, even if we can't be there on the sidelines, in the stands, and the like. But overall, very good report. Thank you very much.
Nice, Bill.
Anybody else? I have a couple of questions and comments. First of all, that's a tremendous accomplishment, Ron, to be able to say that you've gotten through the fall, you've gotten through the winter without any transmission within Walpole players. They deserve a lot of credit, and so do you. So thank you very much for that. Do you have a sense of how many games will they be able to have, and how many students do you have that are ready to participate in these sports?
We're closing registration tomorrow.
Okay.
So as far as participation, we're seeing numbers a little bit down for various reasons. Kids, being in different cohorts, and the apprehension, and also, I'd be remiss if I don't think that it's because of the weather too, in some regard. Standing out on a football field in 28-degree weather or 32-degree weather, or running track, and so we think the numbers are down a little bit on that, but we'll have close to probably 90 to 100 football players come out.
Okay.
Probably close to 130 between boys and girls track.
Good.
Volleyball is right on course in the 50s. So we're right on course for all those sports. Cheerleading is, it's a little bit down, and I understand that. Not doing the competitions really affects them. I've asked the cheer coach to reach out to the kids and see what they want to do. We will allow out of season coaching, and if they'd rather do that, I'm in full support of that. Because doing two games maybe, might not be what they want to do. It's a lot of work for that, and I recognize that and understand that. Game-wise, volleyball is looking at 12 games.
Oh wow!
So a little bit more than half their season. Football, I believe we've got on the schedule 5.
Okay.
And indoor track or outdoor track, however you want to view that, is I think we got 5 meets. So we feel pretty comfortable, pretty hopeful that we can get all 5 in. But we feel that we could at least get 4 in for football, and we can move the track around a little bit more if we have to.
That's great, because it is so important to some kids. It really is. And as you saw earlier in the presentation, we are concerned about the kids and their social emotional well-being. So this is good. 2 more. Track I've always loved because it's a no-cut sport. And it sounds like if you're saying maybe as many as 150, it still can be a no-cut sport. Is that the way you're looking at it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right.
No cut. You're going to have to change practices and, be honest with the kids. Best example is the throwers. They're used to going into the gym down below and throwing, and lifting. Well, that's not an option this year. So, we're going to get into Johnson a few times, and talk to the coach about maybe they can do something else, helping out in other areas.
Well, yeah, and I think that track is a great sport, even if you don't compete in the meet. If
Right.
you compete against yourself and you can run a little bit more after 3 weeks of practice than you could on the first day, that's a huge accomplishment. So I love the fact that it's a no-cut sport.
Yes.
And my last point is, I think when you were talking about the masks, you were trying to say that the coaches are expected to be role models.
Correct.
Are you expecting that coaches, players, and anybody who is potentially a spectator will be wearing masks?
Yes, that's the way the guidelines are with the MIAA, and that is our expectation.
I would add that in your presentations because I got the point that you wanted the coaches to be role models, but I didn't see anything about the fact that all the time, just wear them, because that's what's going to make it work.
Mhm.
But thank you. You
You're very welcome.
deserve a lot of credit. So
Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Great. Thank you for being here tonight, Ron.
Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, that gets us to the first reading of three policies that we need to look at. In general, when we have a first reading, we don't necessarily have a lot of discussion, although Dr. Quealy is here with us tonight, and maybe you can people can read the names of the policies, Dr. Quealy, but maybe in a short encapsulation, explain the 3, and we'll really discuss them further next time.
Okay, sure. So the district this year is going through 2 different audits, an educational stability audit, which covers our students who are homeless or students who are in foster care in the district. And we're also going through what we used to call mid-cycle review, which is the halfway point between our special education and civil rights CPR. So what we've done, myself and Mr. Hahn, we've submitted documentation for each of those audits, and we're starting to get feedback on that documentation, and that's the product in what you see tonight, is some adjustments to some policies in those different areas. So the first one is regarding homeless students. There is some adjustment in terms of language and content largely to bring it up to date with the most recent mask policy. The same holds true with the second policy regarding educational opportunities for children in foster care. This is a policy we actually didn't have in the district up until now. It is required through ESSA. We did use the mask template to write this policy. And I think it's an important policy, particularly given the fact that we have the Home for Little Wanderers in the district, and every student that is at the Home for Little Wanderers is considered a foster care student. So I think this policy is important, particularly given that fact. Both of these policies, the first two, have been reviewed by General Counsel Dan Brown, and he sort of signed off on the changes and the new policy that's been created. There's a third one with educational stability, and I've failed to put it in your packet, but it deals with the residency validation. And in this policy, it notes that students that are homeless are exempt from the residency validation. And really the only change in this policy is adding foster care students to that residency validation. So it's a very minor change, but I don't have it in your materials tonight, so I do apologize for that. And then finally, the physical restraint policy. This was a product of feedback from the mid-cycle review. And this again is to get us to mirror the mask policy from October 2019. And the major takeaway from this policy is the policy itself is really streamlined. It's a much shorter policy than we've had. And the reason for that is a lot of the nuts and bolts content of the policy has been taken out and developed in a separate procedures document. So that's not necessarily a policy, but it's more of a procedures document. And the policy itself is much briefer than it had been. I do want to say, before I go much further, I want to thank Mary Mortali, who is a tremendous help to me in sort of obtaining and making the changes in these policies. So before I go any further, I wanted to make sure that I stated that. And then finally, with the physical restraint policy, this was also reviewed by General Counsel. It was also reviewed by our special ed counsel, who helped develop the procedures with me. So I think those are the four. I know three are listed, but the four that have really impacted through the two audits that we're going through.
Dr. Creel, the updated school committee agenda does have the fourth, so that they should be in the packet.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's the fourth one, so you did include it.
Thank you.
And you're very smart to credit Mary Mortali, because she probably was the one who found that fourth one. So thanks, Mary.
Yep. So I can certainly answer questions, but in a nutshell, that's the basis for the agenda item.
Are there any questions tonight? If not, these will be on the next agenda. And if people have questions in between, just reach out to Dr. Quealy. Okay? All right, that gets us then to the superintendent's report. Bill?
All right. So we want to start with a thank you to the Walpole DPW and our custodian crews who were able to clear the roads, parking lots, and school sidewalks so we could safely open our schools on Monday and ensure everyone was able to get home safely on Tuesday. A reminder to the community, when there's a chance of inclement weather, Dr. Goff monitors the weather forecast and receives timely information from public safety, DPW, and school operations staff to assist school and road conditions. The children's safety is always our first priority, and as you know, New England storms are not always easy to predict, but we appreciate your patience as we make decisions about keeping schools open, having an official snow day, or whether a remote day is more appropriate for our students' learning. This week, as was noted earlier, our second grade students started a 4-day in-school schedule. Making this transition mid-year can be challenging for educators and caregivers alike, but we are grateful to all stakeholders who have helped make this transition smooth. Many families have inquired about our plans once teachers are fully vaccinated. We continue to work with the Walpole Board of Health, district administrators, our health staff, and the teachers union to prepare once we receive more guidance from the state and CDC. We will communicate our plans when our information becomes available. Our goal is to increase in-person learning when we can do so safely. As you know, February is Black History Month. Black History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by African Americans and a time for recognizing their central role in U.S. history. Our schools have planned many events, lessons, and displays to recognize the incredible contributions of African Americans in our history. Some highlights, and I'm just noting some here, include at the elementary level, digital learning coaches have created a Black History Month website of information, activities, and lesson ideas for our teachers to access and implement in the classroom. The Walpole Multicultural Book Initiative has ensured that we have new books for elementary students that represent more diverse characters, authors, and plots. Our elementary music and art classes are introducing African American artists in their classroom lessons. Our media centers are promoting many great titles celebrating Black History Month. All Elm and full remote students had a presentation by the Crocodile River Music. This fantastic African arts and education program presented their interactive dance workshops to each grade, starting with a live art studio tour. The Cultural Inclusivity Committee, made up of students and staff from the middle school, continue to meet to identify additional opportunities to celebrate Black History Month, as well as ways to apply these ideas in creating a series of awareness activities and programs about other marginalized groups beyond February. The middle school's staff and students have created displays about accomplished Black Americans on their doors and outside their classrooms. In addition, student-produced slideshows highlighting the contributions of prominent Black Americans have been made available to teachers and are being shown during homerooms. Teachers have created mini lessons in ELA and social studies that showcase the varied contributions Black Americans have made to the history and culture of the United States and around the globe. The high school lobby and social studies wing is filled with beautiful displays celebrating Black history. Classes at the high school will continue to participate in Black History Month research biography poster assignment that was created several years ago by the Walpole High School staff. Student submissions will be on display on the third floor of the high school throughout this month. While celebrating Black History Month is a priority for Walpole Public Schools, our goal is to celebrate the contributions of African Americans every day as part of our school culture, daily curriculum, and lesson planning. With the February break approaching, please be reminded of Governor Baker's travel order. All visitors entering Massachusetts are required to produce a negative COVID-19 test results that have been administered up to 72 hours prior to arrival in Massachusetts. If for some reason if you're unable to be tested prior to leaving the high-risk state, you must arrange to be tested within 24 hours of your return back to Massachusetts. Please turn in any negative test results to your building school nurse. While awaiting for test results, your child must remain at home under quarantine and not return to school until a negative test can be produced or quarantine has been completed. Please visit www.mass.gov if you have any more questions or need information. Finally, on behalf of Dr. Goff and the entire school department, we hope our students and families find time to rest and relax over February break. Don't forget that Sunday is Valentine's Day, a great day to celebrate those that we love. And that is it for me.
Nicely done, Mr. Hahn. Okay, we have a few items under old business. Are there any questions or comments for Bill? Oh, Carrie.
Just a super quick one. That's the first I've ever heard about the Cultural Inclusivity Committee at the middle school. Can you tell us maybe really quickly a little bit about what they do?
Yeah, it's brand new, and it's a product of our work with KW Diversity. As we've mentioned, we have, and as that as well be a workshop for this group here. We have a group of about 26 educators, both leadership and school staff, working with Dr. Khalees Warnham. And we had some staff from the middle school that wanted to get a jump start and are, I don't want to say ahead of schedule because they're just excited and ready to get moving. And so they actually started a committee of students and staff within their school building. So this is just one group that's kind of leading the way. And my gut tells me we'll have more groups like that in the future in the next year or two at each of our buildings and or levels. This group just wanted to get out front and was encouraged to do so. So that's brand new, Carrie, brand new.
That's wonderful. I think, things like Black History Month are so important, and yet when they exist, they sometimes can lead us to think like, well, we have these 28 days or these 30 days to kind of focus in on this particular area. So I love that we have initiatives in the schools that are pushing to make this year-round work. So that's wonderful.
Thank you, Carrie. Bill?
That's wonderful. I think, things like Black History Month are so important, and yet when they exist, they sometimes can lead us to think like, well, we have these 28 days or these 30 days to kind of focus in on this particular area. So I love that we have initiatives in the schools that are pushing to make this year-round work. So that's wonderful.
Yeah, very interesting. I agree with you. Okay, first item under old business is the middle school project report. I'm gonna turn it over to you, at least at first, Mr. Breen.
Very good, everybody. Thank you. So listen, just to begin, the public, our large listening audience out there, I would encourage you to go to the school website, and there's a link to the middle school building project there that will give you plenty of information. We can't emphasize that enough, that there's plenty of information there. So just to review, on the 26th of last month, the school building committee opted for option B1, which is a combined middle school project sort of behind the Bird Middle School, not on the field side, but on the parking lot side. On February 9th, just a couple of days ago, the Board of Selectmen endorsed that selection. So what we're really doing now is kind of sharpening the pencils to see what exactly that building would look like. And we are due by the end of this month to submit that option to the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority, for further review, I guess. But so things, I've said this before, the pace is picking up, and it's getting more and more exciting with each passing couple of weeks, it seems.
Anybody else have, yes, Mr. Buckley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If it's possible, could we get maybe somewhere central on that website announcement of the final decision about what option to do? Because last I checked earlier this evening, it still had the 3 options there. I didn't kind of talk about the steps that Mr. Breen had just articulated being checked off. So I think that might be good.
I'll work with Compass to make sure that information gets to BJ Burke. That should be pretty seamless and easy, Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that they do a pretty good job of monitoring our meetings too, to make sure that they're on top of questions and answers. So as Mark was pointing out, getting this to this milestone is a big deal from their point of view. You know, at different points, it felt like, oh, we might not be able to make that February submittal. My guess is that Compass has a fair amount of paperwork that they just have to put together. Every submittal seems to be huge in terms of numbers of pages. But I think you're right, Bill. If it doesn't have to be in the next 24 hours, like once they do the submittal, if they could give a little bit more attention to what this has accomplished and make sure it shows up on the website, that would be great. So as we go along over the next few months, I think that it'll be important to make sure we do some sort of summary at Springtown meeting, so that people who are not necessarily regular viewers of the school committee meetings know what's going on about this project. Because I listened when the conversation was being had at the Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I thought Jim O'Neill made a good point that we do need to begin to turn our focus to making sure that the community at large is informed about this. I think we've done a really good job with parents of young children, but that's only a portion of our community. So it's always good to think about ways to share this information. Anything else about that? If not, we'll go to the school year calendar for our third reading and vote. You want to just summarize what's there, Bill?
Yeah, so the calendar proposes that teachers will return to school on Monday, August 30th. Students in grades 1 to 12 will return to school on Wednesday, September 1st. Pre-K and kindergarten will return to school on Tuesday, September 7th. And the last day of school for grades K to 11 without snow days would be Wednesday, June 15th. We did want to make a note, Mary Mortali picked up, if we did have 5 snow days, it would actually push us back 6 days because of the Juneteenth holiday would be observed by the school system. And then finally, as we get to the third reading to be voted on. We talked last school committee about the potential of adding just one half-day professional day for teachers. And we surveyed all the principals, and they requested pretty unanimously, actually, October 8th. If the school committee was willing to add one half-day professional day, October 8th would be the requested day.
So I think we've had a tremendous amount of conversation about this. I think we have a pretty good proposal in front of us. Are there questions or comments for Bill or any of the administrators? What I like about that October 8th day is it lines up with Columbus Day being a holiday that Monday. And I remember that when I had kids who were interested in looking at colleges, it gave you a concentrated weekend to do a trip if you're going out of the New England area. Hopefully we'll be able to do some things like that in the fall. Who knows if that's a thing yet, but I thought that was a pretty good choice for the extra half day. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I'd take a motion, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, make a motion to approve the 2020-2021 school year calendar as amended.
Second. 21-22, right?
Okay.
Yes, 21-22 school year.
Did I say that? Whatever. That one. 21-22.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Bill and a second by both Mark and Jen. We'll give it to Jen, if that's okay. And I'll do a roll call vote, unless there are any other questions? Okay, roll call vote. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. The next item is the school committee meeting calendar. And it always seems like we vote one and then we have to make a few adjustments in it anyway. So, did anybody notice anything that stood out? If not, I would take a motion to approve the proposed school committee meeting calendar.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Bill and second by, I don't remember who said that.
Me.
Kristen, great. Okay, any further discussion? I'll poll the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen? And Nancy, yes. Are you there, Jen?
Yes. Got it.
I know. We all freeze every now and then.
Little difficulty scrolling back and forth between screens.
All right, we're almost done. Hang on there. Okay, that was a unanimous vote. Thank you very much. That gets us to subcommittee activity. I wanted to give a little bit of an update on the legislative breakfast, but were there any other subcommittees that have met in the last 2 weeks?
Yes.
It was,
Oh,
yeah, the
go ahead,
curriculum subcommittee and the policy subcommittee. Dr. Quealy spoke to the policy.
I heard you say policy, and what was the other one? Oh, curriculum.
The curriculum.
Do you want to say a few words about that, Kristen, or?
Sure.
Thank you.
So during the curriculum subcommittee, we reviewed 3 main topics. There were so many other things that we could have addressed. The first, we talked about early literacy. There's a new screening that's come down from the state that we will adopt. It will cover kindergarten through 5th grade. We're taking a step beyond what the state recommends. As a parent of somebody who struggles with reading, I think it's a great program. I know it's another unfunded mandate, but I think this will help to address hopefully some issues sooner than where some students usually have troubles. We also continue to talk about math, really looking at what's happening with the math curriculum, changes that we can make. Mr. Hahn gave a really good outline of sort of what we've done to date with changes to the math program, and there's a little bit more work to do there. And then there's an ELA audit that is coming up that we will talk again more in the next subcommittee meeting. So I think that's an overview of some of the topics.
Perfect, yes. Anything else you want to add to that, Sean?
No,
Okay.
Kristen's spot on.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, and the other thing was last Friday, Tech had a legislative breakfast. It was sit in your own kitchen and bring your own breakfast, but it was a very important chance for collective voices to speak to our state legislators. There were over 50 people in attendance. From our district, Senator Feeney and Representative Ted Phillips were both there in person. Representatives Rogers and McMurtry had their staff members there. Senator Jason Lewis and Representative Alice Peisch, who are the co-chairs of the Education Committee, were both in attendance, and as was Senator Roush from Needham, who spoke on some of health-related issues. I think in some ways the COVID environment helps for people to be able to participate because they could multitask. They could be at this meeting for a half an hour and then be at their next meeting without having to leave their desk. But some of the conversation that came up was, we talked about budget, and the budget was kind of the good news. Often that's the majority of the topic at this time of year, but the governor's budget has come out and it has level funded state aid. So both the House of Representatives and the Senate expect to hopefully improve a little bit from there. That was positive news. One of the things that Senator Lewis pointed out was that many districts have lost enrollment this year. So the funding for next year is based on this year's enrollment numbers. And in his mind, the governor didn't take that into account when he funded the education budget. He feels like there are going to be some towns and cities that will experience the students returning next year, but not having their state dollars follow them. I think that we're not in that situation because in addition to all the other rules, the state budget has something that's called a hold harmless rule. And what it means is that you don't get less dollars next year than you have this year. We do have declining enrollment, and we have had declining enrollment, and that hold harmless has been a benefit to us the last few years. So while it is a concern statewide, it's not particularly concerning, I don't think, for us. Another thing that came up, one of the superintendents was talking about how when federal dollars come to cities and towns, it often is distributed by way of the Title I formula. So some districts don't get any money, some districts get a lot of money, and some districts get a little money. And essentially, that's the federal government's way of sending money to the neediest districts. What the superintendents were saying is, we understand that that is often the rationale, but sometimes we would like you to consider distributing money on a per pupil basis. So again, that's one of the things that's powerful about having groups of districts lobby together on a topic like that. The towns that were at this meeting were pretty similar to ours. At one point, 3 superintendents told their stories about the challenges related to this year, and it was very interesting because the 3 of them were very different. Two towns were offering hybrid learning. One district happens to have a lot of declining enrollment, and therefore they have plenty of space, so they're able to do a lot of things that other districts have not been able to do in terms of getting more kids back into the building full time. One of the second district, who's in hybrid, is very, very tight on space, and was talking about the pressure that you get when the neighboring community is allowed or is able to do X, Y, and Z, and your space requirements don't allow that. And then the third district that spoke was Framingham, and they've been fully remote all year. Their first step last week was to try to get their staff back into the building. They had not been working from the buildings at all, and if things went the way they were hoping, this week they were going to have their most high need students come in. But it just shows you the intense differences from one town to the next. There was, at the end of the meeting, there were breakout sessions. So we were with people from Dedham and from, well, Walpole was very well represented, along with some of our specific legislators. And that's where we had a chance to talk to Senator Feeney and Representative Phillips. There's definitely talk among the legislators about we've got to get these students back into the schools as safely and the best way we can. And the big message from all the people on last Friday was we need to figure out how we're going to get public school staff members vaccinated, because that will help go a long way in terms of that discussion. And along those lines, I got a note from Select Board Member Mackenzie just today saying that she wants to write a letter collectively advocating for public school staff members to be able to receive vaccines in a prioritized form. I wanted to mention it tonight because I know that Dr. Goff and our union president have already signed on to a similar letter. And if this committee is okay with it, she may be wanting, I'm not sure exactly what route Nancy McKenzie is going down for this, but she may ask me to sign for us, in which case I just wanted to mention it tonight because, you know, we fully understand that the issue is when there's enough volume of vaccine, we're going to get more definitive news from the state government. On the other hand, it's really, we should advocate for getting public school staff members, or I shouldn't say all school staff members vaccinated as soon as we can. So that's a long version of the legislative breakfast and some of the topics that were discussed. Any questions, or would you guys be okay with signing on to a letter of support for vaccinations? Jen?
Yeah, I've been writing separately on this, so I definitely want to sign my name too.
Okay, good. I will follow up with Nancy then. I see you're saying yes too, Kristen. Carrie,
Yes,
Sean, yep, okay.
I have friends and family members in other states who are teachers and who've been vaccinated. So I think I strongly encourage whatever we can do.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting working in a school right now. I don't know how some of the rest of you guys feel, but I think if we could flip a switch and say, okay, you know what, everybody's back in the building tomorrow, there would be people that, I think we would all be very happy on one level and really scared on another. It's not like it's not what people have experienced this year. And it would be a dramatic change. So, I think the vaccinations would go a long way. I really do. Carrie?
Yeah, just to add to that, I think, I work in another district, and I got a message tonight saying essentially that you're on your own to get a vaccine when the eligibility rolls around. That the district will maybe run a clinic, but in the meantime, you should try to go to the mass vaccination sites. And I just saw another story this evening that Harvard has done a sort of report card grade of all of the states in terms of their vaccine rollout, and Massachusetts earned an F. And I just think it's so hard. There are so many people who are fortunate enough to be able to do their jobs entirely from home. We ask our teachers and our other staff in our schools to go to work every day to serve the children in our community. I think it's a real shame that the state has not prioritized school staff to be vaccinated. So I agree with everyone else that anything we can do to advocate for that, we should do, just as a sign of support for all of our staff.
Great. Okay. That gets us to citizens' comments. Has anybody checked if we have any citizens still hanging in here?
Yeah, folks, we do see a hand. I'm going to allow, there's a person, they're listed as school committee. So before moving them in, I'm just going to allow them to talk, do the audio, okay? Because I'm not sure who they are. So I just don't want to move them in video yet. I'm sure they're okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So the person listed as school committee, your audio is on. You're permitted to talk.
Sure. Madam Chair, this is Bill O'Connell. I apologize. I am non-technical, and I think when I tried to get into the Zoom session, I may have put in school committee instead of my name. So that's me. I apologize.
No worries.
And I thank everyone for their time. I thank your board and your educators for all the great work they've done and for being so flexible. And I just had some questions and concerns regarding the curriculum and the block scheduling, specifically the second semester. I have a daughter at the high school, and I've been listening tonight, and it's great that, I know your goals are to increase in-person learning, and my hope and urgency with respect to the half year left is that if the numbers do come down and circumstances change, that the system, has something in place where they can be flexible and try to get the kids back. I just raised the issue specifically for the high school with the beginning of the second semester, just the lack of core subjects. Obviously, I'm sure you've heard this before, and you're doing what you can, but some kids are going to have no math, no English, no science for 8 months by the time they get back to school next semester. And my concern is that the system's locked in for the rest of the year. Again, if the numbers come down, I know there's a lot of moving parts, but I don't know, if the board's ever considered 3 days. If it looks like you had some flexibility the last couple of weeks with snow days, where you can shift days. Has the board considered doing a Wednesday full day? Cohort A 1 week, 3 days. Cohort B the following week. I mean, I think every little bit's going to help. Again, logistically with custodians, I'm sure that's not easy. It's probably a pipe dream, but again, I hope that the system has some flexibility with the numbers coming down. So this is not a total lost year. I mean, my concern is that you're going to have kids, losing core subjects for 8 months. You've got, you got 90-minute studies, 90-minute non-core subjects. Kids getting out of school early when they're only going to school 2 days. And again, I applaud what you've done. It's so, and what the teachers have done. It's got to be so difficult. But my concern again is hopefully that you're trying to increase the in-person learning, and you can, if you have to turn on a dime, that logistically that's possible. you know, I know it's a space issue. I've heard the discussion earlier about the 3 foot versus 6 foot. You know, the high school's not adequate space-wise. I've talked to a couple board members. I don't understand, you know, Plimpton, I guess, does not belong to the town, or it doesn't belong to the school committee. It belongs to the town, but I hope the town benefits from that financially. I mean, we've got a library that's not being used. We've got the COA, which I think is starting to be used now, but I just raise these particular spaces with the hope that, again, you got a half year left. So we're really trying to avoid a lost year. So I appreciate the board's time. And again, I know some of these issues are outside the scope, but I hope the system, the school is thinking outside the box, and they can, even if it's another day, every 2 weeks, I think that would help. So thank you for listening.
Absolutely, and thank you for listening to our meeting. And we will certainly, you know, continue to do what we can do. Obviously, we can't promise you anything tonight.
No.
Thank you, though. Okay, that gets us to approve. That was the only person. Is that correct, Bill?
That was the only person that raised their hand to comment. There's a couple other people, but they don't look to be trying to participate.
Okay. Then we have some warrants, donations, and minutes. Sean, do you have the warrants?
I do. I'd like to make a motion to approve the following expense warrants for the amounts listed in your packet. Those numbers are 221031, 221032.
Second.
We have a motion by Sean, a second by Carrie. I'll poll the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Nancy? Yes. Okay.
And I would also like to make a motion to approve the following payroll warrant for the amount listed in your packets. That is 2130PA.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Sean, a second by, was that Kristen? I'll give it to you, Kristen. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And Nancy, yes. Okay, that gets us to donations and minutes.
I can do those.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to approve the following gifts and donations to Boyden School from various donors to the Multicultural Book Initiative, $240. To Boyden School from the Boyden Pack, headphones for the school store in the amount of $480. To Old Post Road School, Boyden School, Fisher School, Elm Street School from Bay State Textiles Recycling in the amount of $234. To Boyden School from Paul E. Noble Jr. and Ann J. Noble to the Beverly Fusil Media Center donation, $1,525. And to Boyden School from Joanne C. Mulligan to the Beverly Fusil Media Center donation, $100.
Second.
We have a motion by Carrie, a second by Bill for some really kind and thoughtful donations. I'll poll the committee. Bill?
Aye.
Mark?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Sorry, I went out of order. Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy. Sorry, Jen. I wasn't trying to screw you up.
No problem.
Okay, and we have minutes, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the January 28th, 2021 school committee meeting minutes, regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Bill, a second by Carrie. Gonna poll the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And Nancy? Yes. Okay,
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the February 3rd, 2021 curriculum subcommittee meeting minutes.
Second.
a motion by Bill, a second by Carrie. I'll poll the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes.
Through you, Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the February 4th, 2024 Policy Subcommittee meeting minutes.
Second.
Again, we have a motion by Bill, a second by Carrie, polling the committee. Bill?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Carrie?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
And Nancy, yes. Anything else tonight?
I got nothing.
Okay, the one thing I wanted to point out is we do have dates to present our budget to the Finance Committee, and those dates are March 1st and March 4th. And we will have a school committee meeting on the 25th, so, of February. So we'll discuss the budget more thoroughly then, but those are the two nights that we're going to FinCom. Okay? Mark, you're
I'd
up.
like to make a motion to adjourn, if I could.
Yes, you may.
Second.
We have a motion by Mark, a second by Jen. Speed poll. Bill.
Aye.
Mark.
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes.
Sean.
Yes.
Jen.
Yes.
And myself, Nancy, yes. Thank you, everybody,
Have a
and
good
enjoy the vacation and Valentine's Day.
Bye.
Aye.
Night, everybody.